Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Kast. I am joined here today by the legendary Lenore Zann, the voice actress behind Rogue from the X-Men animated cartoon from the 90s. How are you today, Lenore?
Thank you so much, Iyad. I am doing very well, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Same. Very honored that you're here with me today. So,
Thank
I heard that you grabbed a cup of coffee instead of cup of
I
tea.
did. I got a cup of coffee.
Oh,
I had tea earlier today, so I'm having
okay.
coffee now.
Okay. So, what type of tea do you like usually?
I like all kinds of tea, but I like real tea, like regular black tea. I'm not into herbal tea.
Okay.
I like, Indian, Ceylon tea, Earl Grey tea. I was brought up I was born in Australia. So we always drank tea in Australia, and we always had, afternoon tea. So I got into that habit there. And one time we went to India when I was 12, and we got to have the beautiful Indian Ceylon tea, but with they made it with buffalo milk, hot buffalo milk. That was the best tea I've ever had in my life. I've never had as good tea ever since. Hot
Wow.
buffalo milk.
Interesting.
Hard to come by in Nova Scotia.
So in Australia, they did have actual proper tea time. It's
Yes.
as like in Britain, it's a meal. It's a proper meal, like around the
Yes.
afternoon.
You would have tea time. You could call it tea time, like dinner time, supper time, tea time. But we also would have afternoon tea, like when you came home from work or came home from school at say 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you would have tea. And especially because it's so hot in Australia, that tea does cool you off, as you probably know.
Yeah,
When you sweat a little and everything and perspire, it actually cools you off. Yeah. So that's how we got into that habit there. And plus, it's a British colony. A lot of us our ancestors are convicts from Britain. They were sent over there unwilling.
I don't like that connotation because I studied in Australia for 6 years, and I think
Oh,
Aussies are very nice people. Some of the nicest
we
people
are.
I ever met in my life.
We are.
Second only to Canadians, to be honest.
Thank you. I'll take that. So now that I'm an Australian Canadian, I
Best of both
appreciate that.
worlds.
Yes.
Speaking of Indian tea, the tea I have today is called Karak Tea, and that's where I get the name of the podcast, Karak Kast. And this is
Oh,
like a street tea we have here. It's originally from India, very spicy, very herbal, very creamy.
oh, oh, I would
So
like that.
something similar to what you probably had in
So
India.
is it a bit like chai tea? Because I love chai tea.
It's like chai tea, but this is like every shop has their own blends of spices, and I like this one. It's called 77 Karak. So
Sounds nice. Well, if when I come to visit Bahrain, I'll have to try some.
you have to, and you have to visit Bahrain now with the new
Yes,
X-Men show. I'm sure you guys are going to be touring the whole world, and
I hope so.
we have Comic Cons like everywhere else in
Yeah,
the world. So
yeah,
yeah,
great. Well, tell your Comic-Con people to get in touch with me, through Twitter, say, and I'll hook you up with the people that set those things up for us. But it would
that's
be nice for the X-Men to get around and do a tour next
yeah,
year when the show comes out for sure.
yeah. And the X-Men's cast always had an international flavor, like the X-Men, all
Yes,
of them. And that was
totally.
kind of the point of the X-Men from the start is you see heroes of all different kinds and from all different places.
Yeah,
So that's
exactly.
so you mentioned Australia, and what are some of your other favorite memories of growing up in Australia?
Well, when I was little, my parents and I lived in the city in Sydney, but my grandmother lived out in the country, out in the bush, in a place called Karua, which is north of Sydney, and it was very small at that time. And so she lived in a place that was kind of in the bush, where we had, kangaroos and koalas and all those kinds of kookaburras and all these incredible bird life and snakes, big snakes,
Spiders. I
um,
always like the spiders.
spiders. Yeah, the big spiders too. But growing up and being close to nature like that, my grandmother used to tell lots of stories, like fairy stories, and she'd make up stories and lots of things about the bush animals. And my first friends were really some Aboriginal children or Indigenous children of Australia who lived with their grandmother down the road, and their grandmother would look after them. There were probably about 6 or 7 or 8 of them. And we would run up and down between my grandmother's place and their grandmother's place, and we would play. And, they'd tell us these stories about the bush and our connection to nature. And I just grew up feeling that everybody is connected and everything is connected, and that I've never, cared what. I've believed that in equality for all people. Doesn't matter what country you come from, what creed, what color your skin is, what your religion is, what your faith is, your gender. Everybody's welcome in my world. And I think that set me up then for being able to really relate to the X-Men and to Rogue, who feels like an outsider and is really looking for herself. She's a mutant. She feels like she doesn't belong. She's cast out by her family, and she's lonely. And as she grows up, she realizes more and more she cannot ever touch anybody skin to skin. So she can't really be intimate with anybody. So that's a huge weight on a young woman's shoulders. And she is a very interesting character. And a lot of people relate to her. And I certainly do. And having grown up and been from a different country, coming to Canada, having a funny accent, the kids couldn't make out what I was saying, until Crocodile Dundee came out. That ain't a knife. This is a knife. Suddenly Australian accents were cool, right? That was my saving grace, man. It was Crocodile Dundee.
I don't know why when I went to Australia, the accent never bothered me. It felt normal. I think because over here we have some accents that are heavy, like the Australian accent. Or probably because during the 90s, not only did we have X-Men, we have a lot of Australian TV shows that aired on our local TV station. I don't know why, but it was like you'd see 3-4 Australian TV shows in a row every day.
Really?
Yeah, there were good shows.
Skippy the Bush Kangaroo?
Probably. I remember Genie from Down Under.
Uh-huh.
And Spellbinders was Polish, Australian, and New Zealand collaboration, but it was shot in New Zealand, I think. But most of the actors were Australian. And there was another one that I'm blanking out on. Yeah, but there were a lot of Australian shows when I was growing up over here. So
maybe they were tied in with the BBC or something like that.
No, I actually researched that when I went to Australia. Actually, they were like, I think, is it ABC in Australia?
Yes, yeah. Australian Broadcasting Corporation.
Yeah, they're produced by that production company. So that was interesting.
Right. Well, so there you go. So you would have probably been more familiar with the accent. But here in Canada, the kids were like, the first day of school when I went to school, I was 8. And I had broken my arm climbing up on something I wasn't supposed to. And I fell and I broke my arm. So I had a cast my first day of school, and it was out west in Canada on the prairies, it's really flat and it's really cold in the wintertime. But anyway, I showed up at school and I had my arm in a cast, and the kids who'd never seen me before, this new kid would say, "Oh, what happened to you?" And I would say, "I fell off a wall." And they'd say, "What? You what? You fell off a what?" And I'd say, "A wall." And they'd say, "What's a wall?" And I said, well, a wall is like one of those great big things you climb up and then you fall down. That's how I remember being my first day at school, But so they started laughing and everything. They kind of liked hearing me talk. So it wasn't too bad, but, I'll never forget that.
And
I didn't stick out enough without the bloody arm and the cast and everything.
Okay, some quick questions. Favorite movie, favorite song, and did you happen to watch cartoons before you got into acting? And did you read comics before you got into the X-Men?
Wow, those are a lot of questions. Let me see. First of all, favorite song. Well, I have to say I love the music from all the Broadway musicals, but like Frozen, for instance. The big song that she does there. I can't even remember the name of it right now, but
Let It Go.
Let It Go. I love that song. Um, I also love some of the songs from there's a the it's called the Wicked, the musical
Wicked, yeah.
Wicked. Because I saw that on Broadway. But yeah, like I love musicals is the thing. I started off doing musicals when I was 15. I started doing Guys and Dolls at my high school. And I got into musicals. I've seen a lot. I love Les Miserables, like the song When You Hear the People Singing the Song of Angry Men, the story of a people who will not be slaves again. I love that song. That's one of my favorites. Um, and yes, I watched animation cartoons ever since I can remember. Disney, Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Disney or whatever. We watched that at 6 o'clock on a Sunday night every night in Australia growing up. So then when I was 8 and we came over to North America, we stopped off in Los Angeles. We sailed over on an ocean liner, took about a month, and we ended up going to San Francisco and then Los Angeles, and got out in Los Angeles. So I got to go to Disneyland, which was like a dream come true. And then we drove from Los Angeles all the way through the Grand Canyon, the Badlands, Arizona, all these places, all up to northern Canada, to Regina, Saskatchewan. And then after we were there for a year, we ended up going to Nova Scotia, driving across the country to Nova Scotia. So they didn't have iPads or anything like that then. But whenever we had a
Really?
TV in a
How did
hotel,
people kill time without iPads and social
I know.
media?
Well, I would read books. I read books.
A lost art.
Right. There you go. So cartoons and fantasy and using your imagination, sword and sorcery, magic, all that stuff always was a big thing for me. Aladdin, I loved all those stories.
And comic books.
Comic books. I didn't really get into comic books before I did X-Men. But since then, I've been sent a lot of comic books that are of Rogue and her tales, and so I've been getting into those lately. But before that, I really didn't know them.
That's not
Didn't know
even
the
like not. It doesn't have to be superhero comics. It might be like an Archie comic or.
I didn't do comics.
Okay.
No, I was into books.
Okay. So before Rogue, you were associated with another iconic figure, which is Marilyn Monroe. You played her and you wrote a play about her. So what is your favorite Marilyn Monroe movie?
Some Like It Hot. Some Like It Hot. 7 Year Itch is pretty good too, but Some Like It Hot. Bus Stop. I love Bus Stop as well.
How many times have you seen the movies over and over?
Well, when I played her, I watched them a lot because I wanted to see how she moved, how she spoke. And I wanted to do a really perfect, not just an impersonation of her, but to really capture her essence. Mm. And so I watched a lot of her films and I read as many books as I could get my hands on, written by people who knew her. And I was only 19 when I was chosen to play Marilyn. And I was 20. I turned 20 during the rehearsal period. And so I was 20 when I went on stage as Marilyn that very first time. And it really did put me on the map. That was the beginning of my career in film and television. I started getting movie offers right away. And so I started doing more movies and television rather than theater. I played her 2 more times in my career. I played her at 27 in a musical that was written by somebody else. And I did that in Victoria, British Columbia. And then I wrote my own play about her I started when I was about 38. She died at the age of 36, but I started writing it at the age of 38 because I could start to feel how she felt towards the end of her life. And I managed to put that play on, get it produced in New York, and also in Canada, from like 2003 till 2005 or six, something like that.
That's interesting. Now, let's talk Rogue and the X-Men. And let's start
Okay.
from the beginning. How did you get the role initially to play Rogue in the animated series?
Well, being an actor who played a lot of American roles, I was cast in a lot of American movies in Toronto, and in Vancouver. And a lot of them I had to do an American accent.
And that's where they
Uh,
shoot most American shows when they want a city like New York
yes,
or a big city.
yes. And Montreal too. We did so Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver. I was doing a lot of movies there. And I played a lot of Californians, but I also played Texans a number of times. So I'd done the Southern accent in movies, and so my agent called me one day in Toronto and said, "Listen, Lenore, there's a new show. It's a cartoon series, and there's a character in it I think you're perfect for." She said she's got a husky, low voice and sexy kind of sound and a Southern accent, and that's you. So she wanted me to go audition in the beginning, but I for some reason I didn't go right away. I wasn't that interested in doing cartoons in the beginning. I wanted to just do films, television, and theater, and some radio work. But eventually, she called me again like a month later and said, "Lenore, they haven't found the right actress for that role yet. And it's because I know it's you." So
They knew.
get your ass in gear and go over there and do the audition. So I did. I showed up. I looked at the sketch of the character standing there with her hand on her hip with this sassy attitude. And I went into the booth and I just read the first few lines, which were, I believe, "My daddy liked to kill himself when he found out I was a mutant. Oh, get out of my mind. I remember when I was 13, I had me a boyfriend. Had me a boyfriend till I kissed him. Poor boy went into a coma for 3 days. Got so if I touched anybody, it just drove the life right out of him. I don't know, beast. You know everything. What makes us like the way we are anyway?" And I did that. And then I heard this big shriek on the headphones in Los Angeles from the producers who said, "Oh my gosh, that's her. That's the one. Don't let her leave. Don't let her leave the studio. That's Rogue." And the rest is history. That's how it happened.
I think Rogue found you. You didn't find Rogue
I
because,
think so
yeah,
too.
because to be honest, I think this was one of your first voice acting roles, like you said,
Yes.
and you didn't want to do it, but then you
Right.
end up becoming such an iconic voice, and you defined the character. To be honest,
Thank
and
you.
I don't think I'm the only one when I say that when I read the comics, I just hear your voice if Rogue's on the panel or on the page.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you so
I'm
much.
sure I'm not the first one who said that to you.
No, you're right. A lot of people say that, but every time it really makes my heart burst with warmth and love because yeah, I love that character. She is me and I am her, and it's funny, when I read the stories like her backstory, and then as this new series will come forward and the things that I'm going to be doing in that, I could relate to all of it. And she is not an easy character. She is a very complicated character. But then, most people are in some ways. We all have a lot that makes us who we are. And so it's great for me to be able to express myself through her. That's another reason I chose to play Marilyn Monroe. Like the time when I wrote the play about her, I was chosen to play Marilyn, or she chose me. And then years later, when I wrote my own play about her, it was amazing how much I could relate to her by that time. And by that time also, I had realized that I was alcoholic and that I could not drink alcohol and that it was killing me. And unlike poor Marilyn, who, her alcoholism and her addiction to pills killed her at the age of 36, I got sober. I got sober at the age of 36 and have not had a drink of alcohol since. And so, that's partly why I also wrote the play, because I wanted to show people what she might be thinking and feeling and what that would do to a person, and how, even though she was the most beautiful woman in the world, supposedly, and got all this adulation, money, men, fame, whatever, she wasn't happy, and she wasn't happy with herself, and she didn't accept or love herself, which is why she had to fill that empty void inside with exterior things like alcohol or drugs or men or adulation, but it was never enough. So until we actually can fill our own voids with our own self-acceptance and love, then nothing will make us happy.
I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad you came through all of that stronger than before.
Thank you.
Like Rogue.
Yeah, she's had her challenges, and so have I. So yeah, it just makes me stronger and able to play her even better.
I'm guessing, like you mentioned, that the Marilyn play you wrote probably was very deep because of that.
Yes, it was. And it was interesting because a lot of young women would come to see the show. And one of the other messages was that it doesn't matter what your body looks like. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and different cultures think that different pieces of you are beautiful, and they have different ideas. And and poor, women and young men these days are held up to this standard of all these models who are skinny and they've got these muscles and they work out so much and they're flexing their muscles, and the women are all busty, and they've all got fake everything, and they have to go and spend all this money to have all this plastic surgery done, and not everybody can afford that. And why should we have to do that? So my message was also to young women that please learn how to accept yourself as you are, because no matter what you do, no matter how much you twist yourself into pretzels, if you're not happy with who you are, then nobody's going to be. And you've got to make yourself happy, not someone else. Exactly. So it was a strong message. Yeah.
Very strong.
It went over well. Yeah.
You mentioned you played several accents, American accents, but how did that help you to develop Rogue's accent? Because it's very unique, the accent. So I'm wondering if you had an inspiration, or you took inspiration from someone or from a character or someone you knew probably.
No, not really. It just came to me. It honestly just came to me. I honestly, when I went in the audition that day, and just, I hadn't practiced, or I hadn't really seen anything beforehand. They were very secretive about what the material was and what the show was and everything. And I just saw the picture. I saw the drawing of the character. And I could imagine exactly what she sounded like. And my agent was right, because it was like, she said, Lenore, it's you. It's you. It's your voice, but with a Southern accent. So that's all I did. That's good. And, got it.
Because the accent is so unique, I'm wondering if like American fans come up to you and they either tell you, I've never heard of that accent, or do they actually tell you like, oh, you sound like my mom or my grandma or someone like, or my auntie?
No, they just say that is Rogue. They say that whenever they read the things or whatever, they hear my voice, and that it's that's her. That is Rogue. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's me, but with a Southern accent. And I'll tell you something else. You haven't spent time in Australia, too. You might be aware of this. So in Australia, the accent in Australia, we open our mouths very wide. It's like, Yeah, very lateral,
Yeah.
very lateral, g'day, 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 good on ya. And here in Canada, when I went to university and studied drama for a couple of years, they were saying, "Oh, Lenore, get rid of that accent. You got to speak down and out, like this, right?" It's very English, very English. So my accent has never really been Canadian, but when I go to do American accents, it's easy. And I'm thinking it's possibly because the mouth is held the same way, like for the Southern. Well, sugar, I don't know about that. It's a little bit like that. So I'm thinking maybe it's something similar with the Aussie. And Australian actors, as you know, a lot of them are very good with accents.
That is true. So
Lots of great Australian actors.
you've came a long way from being made fun of your Australian accent to creating your own accent and being like one of the most popular and known accents in the world probably today.
Well, that's a very interesting way to put it. Thank you. I like that. That's beautiful. I appreciate it.
So,
I have to tell my little girl inside of me, don't worry, it's going to be okay. They won't be laughing at you when you're older.
They'll actually be cheering and ask you to do the accent every time they see you.
They'll be asking for your autograph.
Okay, so Lenore, you played, other than Rogue, you played some more characters from a lot of shows that I actually watched as a kid, like Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. You were Mikla, and you were Wendy Waters in Rescue Hero.
Yes.
And you were Tigra in Avengers United They Stand. Yeah. So you're an X-Men and an Avenger. You played an X-Men and an Avenger.
Exactly. Nice. Exactly.
And
I was telling Bo DeMeo, who is our producer, one of the producers, I said, you're going to have a show sometime where Tigra comes on. And am I fighting? Would Rogue be fighting Tigra, or would they be on the same team? Anyway, it'd be interesting to have both of them and have to do both characters.
That's interesting.
That would be fun.
Or imagine this. They walk facing each other, and there's like a TV screen with you on, like in the news, something Canadian Parliament or something, and they just stare at you, and then they stare back at each other, and they go on their ways.
Whoa, you sound like a movie maker now, a filmmaker.
That was one of the things I wanted to do.
You write it, and I'll do it.
That's interesting. Speaking of, I said I studied in Australia. You want to take a guess what I studied?
Film?
No. Think X-Men. It's closer to X-Men.
Animation?
No.
Art?
No.
No? I don't know. Space?
Genetics.
Genetics?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And are you doing anything with it now?
No, my path took a different direction. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
More characters you played on shows that I watched is Roll on the Mega Man show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Chikara on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show.
Right.
And I think Master Cyclonus from Stormhawks.
Stormhawks.
Yes.
Did you see that?
My friend had the TV on once, and I was in his house studying, I guess. And I heard your voice, and I'm like, wait, I know that voice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You recognized it without the accent.
Yeah. And not because it's similar to Rogue. I think it was very different from Rogue's, but I recognized the sound, your voice.
Wow. So. That's great. Yeah, that was a fun character because she was pure evil, right? She wanted to take over the universe.
And I just found this out yesterday. You were in an episode of RoboCop, another of my favorite TV shows.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I loved RoboCop when I was a kid.
Well, did you know that I lived with RoboCop?
Really?
Mm-hmm. So my first major boyfriend for about 10 years was from Nova Scotia, like me. And I talked him into doing an audition for the local professional theater company in Halifax here. And he said, "Oh, you're crazy. We're never going to get in." I was in grade 11, and he was just doing construction work at the time. And I said, "No, no." I said, "You can sing." He'd played Tony in West Side Story in the high school, and I said, "You can sing, you can act, you're good looking." No, I said, "We're young. Let's do it. We're going to audition for this theater company." So we did. And I wrote out the scenes, and he did a Shakespearean piece. I did a Shakespearean piece. He did Something's Coming from West Side Story, and I sang something from Guys and Dolls. We got hired on the spot, and we started doing musicals. So he immediately started working full time because he wasn't in school anymore. He'd finished, and I did it in my summers in between my school years. And then we went to Toronto, and he went to Ottawa, and then he got an audition for a show called The Hitchhiker. It was a TV series called The Hitchhiker in the 90s, and he was the hitchhiker. And then after that, he got cast as RoboCop.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we lived together. We lived together for, like I said, like a number of years. And then I was on the TV series where he was the RoboCop. It was hilarious.
And that show as well was shot in Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, in Toronto.
Okay.
Did that one in Toronto.
That's very interesting. So you played a variety of different characters, and you mentioned Master Cyclonus was very evil. So which characters do you feel like you like playing more, the evil characters or the hero characters?
I love them all.
Really?
I love them all. Yes.
There's no difference?
No, not really. I like a mixture. Like the good thing about acting is, you don't have to just play the one character unless you're in a TV series where you're playing the same character all the time. And I enjoy that as well, because then you can really get into the arcs of the character and see how the character changes over time, that sort of thing. But with animation, for instance, yeah, like most of us do a lot of different shows and play a lot of different characters. So after I did X-Men, I went back to Los Angeles, and I decided that I wanted to start studying voice even more deeply, to learn how to change my voice to be able to play other types of characters that I hadn't played before. So to be able to give myself more longevity in the industry. So for instance, I learned how to play like little boys, like a little boy character, which I didn't realize till I got to LA, that oftentimes women play little boys, the voices, because boys' voices will change over time. And if the series has a little boy character and then his voice deepens, then he can't play that character anymore. So they'll oftentimes cast a woman. So it was fantastic. Right after I did those courses, I ended up doing a ton of animation series and playing oftentimes 3 or 4 or 5 characters in the same series, which was great.
So you took the voice acting courses after you did Rogue?
Yeah.
So this time we're going to see a much richer Rogue voice on this upcoming show.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, the Rogue character, like I said, I pull from inside.
It was always there.
She was always there.
Okay, that's nice.
And, yeah, she was always there, and she still is. And I love her. So I'm thrilled that they asked me to do her again. And I really think fans are going to be very excited by this series.
I don't want to live my whole life without knowing what it's like to touch another human being.
You've also had a handful of video game, you did some video game voices as well, but you voiced Rogue in like 3 games, and they're like one of my favorite games. The X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel versus Capcom, Marvel versus Capcom 2. And you did a few games, The Misadventures of Tron Bonne and the Fairly Odd Parents game. So
yeah, I think I did one against Ms. Marvel too, didn't I?
Against Miss Marvel?
Yeah, I was looking at my credits there on IMDb the other night, and I saw there was one that said Rogue versus Ms. Marvel.
Interesting.
I don't remember because it's a long time ago, and I mean, you do those things and.
Interesting. So how do you find the voicing for a game differs from voicing for animation?
In a game, a lot of it is just fighting sounds. So, in the animation, we do a lot of fighting too, but the majority
no deep conversations and dialogue.
No deep conversations, not really. No.
Interesting.
But that's fine. It's still fun.
Now I'm interested. I want to find the Rogue versus Miss Marvel game.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. I'll let you know if I find it.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
And this is a very interesting question because I've heard you and several other members of the original X-Men show mention this, that you didn't know how big the show was when it was airing. And so I'm guessing, did you guys get fan mail and contacted by fans as well?
So the story there is that when the show first aired, it became a super successful show overnight, but we didn't know it. We were just here in Canada. There was no internet at the time. There were no cell phones. There was nothing like that. And so we would go into the studio, record the show, and then go about our lives and hope that we got picked up for another season the following year. And so each year when we got another one for 5 years in a row, we were excited. We got to see each other again. We got to come back into the studio and hang out together. And so we were just happy to be working, really. So it was years later that, actually like 3 years ago, we went to our first Comic-Con in the States, and we met the writers of the show, Eric and Julia, and they told us that at Fox Studio, when the show burst onto the entertainment scene, suddenly there were all these fan mail coming into the studio for us. And they said that there was so much of it that they were in bins all the way down 2 or 3 halls, from in the bins right up to the ceiling from around the world. And we never got it. We never saw it. Nobody ever told us. Nobody ever passed it on.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So all these kids and people, fans from around the world, were writing in, and they never heard back from us. Whoa. Because we never got them. It was so sad. When we heard that, we were so upset because we felt like, like all these kids, they would be so disappointed that we let them down, or, we didn't bother writing back to them. No, so that's the truth of the matter. We had no idea.
Because I can imagine that there was that much fan mail, because the show was very, very big. Like, a lot of people liked it.
See, well, we didn't know. We're just finding out. We're just finding out now. So we went to a Comic-Con like after that one in Los Angeles, and this is again like 2.5 years, almost 3 years ago, before COVID, and there were like 100,000 people there, and we had a big panel where all these people were in the audience, and the response to us, we were just overwhelmed. We were blown away. We had no idea. And when kids and their parents would come up to us, and the parents would say, "You changed my life." I would come home from school. I was a kid. I felt alone. I was bullied. I felt different. I was, picked on for this, that, or the other thing. And you were my safe place where you made me feel it's okay to be different. It's okay. We all just want to get along. And they said, and so we're bringing up our kids to watch it now too. And, so to hear that really makes you feel humble. And that, you're just a small part in this big puzzle that is the universe. And that somehow that your work has gotten out there and helped people get through life it's just a beautiful thing. We're all really, really grateful.
By the way, that's great parenting, letting your kids watch X-Men. That's like, that should be the gold standard for parenting.
I know. And now like they're watching it with their kids, right? So I think the new generation, the new X generation.
Yeah, I think what drew me to the show, like I was young, but the writing and the like dialogue was complex. It wasn't like other cartoon shows, like, and sometimes it got dark even. So, did you realize while you're reading that, hey, kids are watching this show? Why is the script like this? Why is Rogue saying this? Why is Professor X saying that?
Yes, but all of us felt that you don't talk down to the audience, that you realize that the audience is intelligent and that they're thirsty for something to hang on to. You know, it was interesting when they cast the X-Men. You will hear the producers and the writers talk about how they first of all tried actors in like the States and also out in Vancouver, trying to get just people who had a lot of experience doing cartoon work, voiceovers in cartoons, but they didn't get the substance that they wanted. And so then they said, well, why don't we want like real actors who can do deep stuff, deep contemplation and a deep backstory, and then come out with it and really make people feel the emotions. And so they said, well, let's get actors who are good with theater actors. And that's also how I ended up being one of the people being sent there, because all of the actors in Toronto that did the X-Men were all Canadian, all started off with theater. And we have really a lot of theater credits and a lot of film and television as well to our names. And so we are deep actors. We think a lot before we do something. We put ourselves into it. And that's what they wanted. And that's why these incredible scripts are universal. You know, like a lot of these, the stories that we see in the X-Men in some ways are like the great myths of any culture. So, you know, they're universal stories. And those universal mythologies in all cultures, they defy time, don't they? You know, they're with us. They're part of our eon, you know, part of our ethos. And so that's why I think that the X-Men is still popular today, because it is deep, and that's a good thing.
And it was also one of the earliest shows cartoon shows at least, that had an ensemble of characters. It wasn't like a team of 4 or a team of 5. No, it was every mutant can show up and be a main character of that episode. So that was nice. So I think that made it more relatable, because you're eventually going to find a character that you relate to, because they all had different characteristics and personalities. Right. So that was interesting. And so the producers did emphasize that you have to go deep with the character, and it's not for a younger audience.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And that yes, the younger audiences will be watching it, but that they will get it.
Yeah, they'll grow up with it.
They will get it. Yeah. And you know, and just these lovely lessons that we are all working together, that we're all in this together, that it doesn't matter if we're different, so what, you know, that makes us even more beautiful. And you know, we're all colors of the rainbow kind of thing. You know, that's what the world needs right now. The world needs those kinds of messages, as opposed to, oh, we're different from each other and trying to have wars with each other and kill each other because we're different. I mean, come on, it's a tiny little planet. And, exactly. You know, we need to work together in order to survive and to keep the planet healthy.
Yeah, no need for labels or walls or fences.
Exactly.
And personally, one of the deepest episodes for me, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but it's A Rogue's Tale. And it's one line in A Rogue's Tale that, as a kid, I want to say messed me up, but in a positive way. Made me think. Which one was it? You made me worse than a killer at the end, she tells Mystique. And as a kid watching that, I couldn't contemplate what could be worse than being a killer. How much guilt is Rogue feeling? It was such a philosophical moment for me as a kid. And it still stuck with me. I kept thinking, what could be worse than being a killer? How much amount of guilt is Rogue feeling right now? It's the Miss Marvel episode, episode with Miss Marvel, yeah. So
Yes.
that was very deep for me, and still, like, when I watch it, I tear up. I'm tearing up right now just talking about it, and with you as well. So
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I people have not mentioned that line to me. Interesting. You're the first one.
it's a great episode. It's from the start to finish. A lot of
Oh,
great lines, but that one specifically.
You never loved me. You only cared about my powers. You made me worse than a killer.
well, obviously that's my favorite episode so far because it's my backstory,
Yeah.
right? Rogue's backstory, and you find out why she is the way she is and what makes her who she is. But that's a real, I'm going to look back at that line. That's really beautiful. I mean, yeah. And poor Ms. Marvel is now trapped in this sort of, she's in a coma and she's within me. And, yeah. And I was conned into taking her life from her and taking it upon myself. One of the other lines people have mentioned to me is when I say, when I go to Muir Island because I want to get rid of my powers to be like everybody else. And finally I realize you can't change who you are. You can't change who you are.
No matter how hard you try.
Right.
But there ain't no cure for who you are.
Yeah, that's nice. And I hope we get more lines in the show. I hope they don't shove them in. I hope they come naturally and organically. But a lot of shows today, they lack that, and they should learn from the X-Men. Like, it's just one line in a really nice episode, see? And there are tons of other lines in other episodes. I think a lot of shows need that moment.
There are those in this new one, trust me.
Oh my God, that warms my heart right now.
Yeah.
So let's.
And the nice thing, sorry, I was going to just say the nice thing is that when I'm working with Bo and with the director, they let me come up with things too. So I'll go through the script at home, a few days in advance of going in and recording it. And I'll make little notes, and then I'll come up with certain things that I think might work better for the character. And they trust me enough to say, okay, let's do it that way. Or yeah, let's do Lenore's line. And I'll say why. I'll explain why I feel that this other way is better. And I would say 99.9% of the time they're like, yeah, let's go with that. Lenore's instincts are right on this. So that's really nice too. I didn't get to do that way back when.
That's interesting. We'll see the difference now. Like,
yeah,
because you know Rogue so well, I'm guessing we're gonna get like really nice lines or improvisations, I guess.
Yes.
Well, they're not improvisations. If you, they're just suggestions.
They are when I just sort of, you'll see.
Instinct. That's nice. So now let's talk X-Men '97 coming on Disney Plus next year. After 25 years from the last episode, the X-Men are coming back. So I want to start with, what was your reaction when you got the call?
I was blown away. I was in kind of a dark place when I got the call, because my sweet little 17-year-old niece had just died, and she had cancer. Thank you. She had this terrible type of cancer, osteosarcoma, which is a bone cancer, and it goes after young people. Young, healthy people tend to get it. And she had just got her driver's license, and she's a gymnast, and she had her life ahead of her, just blossoming into young womanhood. And then she got this terrible disease, and she had to have her leg amputated. And so that was hard enough. And then we thought she was going to live after that. She was trying out her prosthetic leg, and she was very athletic, and she was, she's an athlete. And we really thought, okay, this is going to be okay. She's handling it well and everything. And then we found out that it had metastasized to her lungs. And we were told that she basically only had a month to live. And it was so hard. It was so hard. And she she died. She passed away last summer. And I was also at the time, for 12 years, I've been in politics. I was an elected official. And right after she died, an election was called, and I had to start, door knocking and doing what you do to get elected. And to be honest, my heart really wasn't in it in some ways. And I lost that election. So I had the death of my niece, and then I lost the election, which meant my job. And I just went into this really deep state of depression. And then I got this call. Well, it started off with an email. And then I said, well, if this is for real, call me. And I got a call from the casting director who told me that, no, this is for real, and that Disney is going to be doing this show, and that they're interested to see whether or not I would like to reprise my role. And it was funny because right when she called, this little red bird flew down out of nowhere and landed right on my table, right beside my phone, and looked at me very quizzically and was like trying to tell me something. And it's funny because here in Nova Scotia, we have these little red birds, and they're called cardinals. And they say when a cardinal draws near, an angel is here. And so they say it's like a message from somebody that you love who's passed. And I looked at the little red bird and I said to the casting director, my goodness, a cardinal just landed here. I think he's trying to tell me that something good is going to happen. And she laughed. She said, well, and I explained, she said, oh, well, I have a feeling the little bird knows more than we do. And sure enough, I ended up getting the role. And so, it came at the right time when I was really, really down, and it really boosted me up. And I was able to put all my energy and all of my emotions into the new season, the first season.
First off, I'm sorry for your loss, and
thank you.
We never lose anybody as long as we remember them. They live on in our memories. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And so the show is called 97 because it's going to pick up where the original, I can't believe I'm saying original X-Men show, but original X-Men show ended, which was an abrupt ending. As a fan, I have to admit this and say this. It was an abrupt ending. There was no ending, to be honest. It was just like something, whatever they could. And so I'm very happy that they're going to pick it up. Even if they don't end that story, just continue on. It'll be great. And a new generation of fans will be introduced to the X-Men, just like how I was introduced to the X-Men in the early 90s. And I started reading comics and all that. So I know you can't talk a lot about anything regarding the show, but when you first picked up the script and read it, how did it feel? Did it have the same vibe, the same tone, the same attitude? Because we know the 90s was all about attitude. Was it as colorful as the old scripts?
Yep. Yes. And I couldn't put it down. I actually I think I got 2 right off the bat, 2 scripts to start with. And I couldn't stop reading them. That's a good sign. I've read a lot of scripts in my time, and sometimes you start reading and it's like, oh god, this is boring, or read that before. This wasn't like that. And I could see and hear everything. I could see it all happening in front of my eyes as I was reading it, and I heard all the voices and stuff like that too. And it was exciting. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be really good. And each script has been like that all the way along. Okay,
so you didn't you never felt like, oh, something changed about Rogue or this character?
No. No. And if I did have a line that sounded a little bit not quite the way Rogue would say it, that's where I said I made the suggestions to change it, and they did.
That's very.
And I know, Wolverine's doing the same thing.
That's very comforting to hear.
Yeah.
And since now I'm guessing, because I saw you record by yourself in a studio in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing everybody else is doing the same thing. Is it a different vibe as well during recording? I know actors, voice actors especially, they record solo sometimes for shows. They just go and read their lines. But Like, is it different from before? Like, was there a chemistry that's now kind of missing with everybody being in the same place?
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, when we first started, we were all in the same city.
Yeah.
We were all in Toronto. And so it would be like a radio drama, which a lot of us had done. Like with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, we did a lot of radio dramas. So we would all come in. It would be like a radio drama where we'd be at the mic and we would all get to feed off each other. So yeah, that was fun. But we were also new. It was a new show. We were finding our way through. Some of us were new to each other. And so I think that was a very important part of in the beginning. But to be honest, after you've done several seasons, you know the roles, you know what the other characters are, you know it so well that you don't necessarily need the people there because you can imagine the way they're going to do it. And that's the way they ended up doing it. So I don't miss being in the room with everybody right now. Maybe someday we'll be able to do it again where we can be together. But I mean, we're all spread out. We're all in different places. So I'm just glad that we're doing it.
As long as the show gets done, the actors could be in Australia. That'll be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you said, you know each other. You can hear each other's voices. That's really good. That just shows how close you are and how like attached to the characters you are. So
yeah. And there are new people and there are new characters too. So, getting to know and hear those people is really fun as well.
So, Lenore, how does it feel? Does it still feel unreal that the X-Men are coming back, or it will only hit you when the first episode is out or when you're all in the same room recording?
I'm there, man. I'm there. I'm there. I've already done a number of the episodes. I've done most of the episodes for the first season now, and I'm very excited about. I want to see how people react now, and I would like to get back to Los Angeles and do a couple of episodes in the Disney studio as well, so that I can say hi to all the folks that are working on it behind the scenes. So I might do that in the next couple of months. I might take a trip to LA for that. But otherwise, no, I feel really good about it and I feel secure in it. And I think people are going to really love it. There's a lot there. And interestingly enough, art imitates life, but life imitates art. Sometimes, you do something, you write something, and it's weird that suddenly it's happening in real life. So a lot of that's going on as well.
That's nice to hear. So Lenore, Disney Plus is releasing next month officially in the Middle East. And that means probably or definitely the X-Men 97 is going to get an Arabic dub. There's going to be an Arabic voice actor that's going to be playing Rogue.
Okay.
So first of all, if you're going to watch the X-Men show, you can't watch it in any other language. You have to listen to Lenore play Rogue. Watch it in English first, then watch it in your preferred language later.
Thank you. Thanks for the plug.
Yeah. But that also means that more people this time are going to watch the show and get exposed to it, which is a good thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I want you to, do you have an advice for the voice actress that's going to play Rogue in the Arabic dub?
Just have fun. I'm sure they'll pick somebody who is similar to me and similar to the character, who also feels like she loves the character. And I would just say, just have fun. Just enjoy the ride.
And what about a general advice for anybody who wants to get in voice acting?
Well, I would say take some classes. I think it's always good to take acting classes. If you have no experience. I know a lot of people would like to just jump into voice acting instead of being an actor first, but the more acting experience you can get, like on stage, film, television, radio, it all helps. But yeah, classes are great. And just, learn what your your main sound is, your main quality sound, but don't be afraid to then try other characters and change that sound because it'll give you more opportunity to play other types of characters as well as just the one kind of main character. That'll give you more longevity.
Interesting. I like that word. You mentioned it a few times, longevity.
Yeah.
So that would be the advice for anyone who is interested in voice acting.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up, Lenore, this is the final question, and I'm going to have fun with it. If Lenore Zann can have any superpower in real life, which superpower would it be?
I have to fly. I would love to fly. Sorry, Ms. Marvel. But I want to keep that one. I don't care about throwing buildings or any of that stuff. I want to fly.
I think most people would pick that because it's a simple one. It's passive. It's not aggressive, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And we do it in our dreams, right? A lot of times we can fly in our dreams. And the feeling when you take off, you know, when you're running along and then you take off into the air, there's nothing like it. I love it.
And
So yeah, I want to fly.
And then when you fall from the sky, you fall from the bed. So there's something there.
Yes, exactly. Well, I don't tend to fall. I usually wake up first.
Really? I get this a lot. Like I'll be either flying or on a high place and then I'll fall in the dream and then I'll find out I fell off the bed. A lot of people
Really?
That's something.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's one of the most
I have
common
not had
things
that. I have
that
not
happen.
fallen off the bed. Okay. You must be very active then in your sleep.
Yeah. You fell off the wall, so that's something.
That's right.
You know
Fell
how
off the wall.
you know how it feels in real life, but it's really scary. You wake up, you're scared. You're like, what happened? I fell. Oh, I'm just on the floor.
Oh.
I had Ms. Marvel's super strength and her ability to fly permanently.
I have one final thing.
Yes.
I want to give you my predictions for the X-Men show, and these predictions will be specific to Rogue. Things that
Okay, I'm going to try not to show anything on my face. Poker face.
Yeah. So I hope one of these at least happens. Maybe it hasn't happened yet or you haven't recorded it yet, but prediction number 1 for X-Men 97, Rogue is going to lift Thor's hammer, Mjolnir.
Okay.
Because that happens in the comics. And now since all the characters are under Disney, that could be a possibility.
Right. Okay.
Prediction,
What else?
Prediction number 2 for X-Men 97, Rogue is going to turn evil and stay evil for a few episodes.
What makes you think that?
Because, you know, the Mystique connection and
Okay.
complex characters are, you know, they fight that duality. So Rogue kind of is closer than most characters.
And that's why you asked me, do I like playing the good characters or the bad characters?
Probably, yeah.
And I said both.
I'm sure you're going to nail evil Rogue even better.
Okay.
My third and final prediction is in the X-Men 97 show, we're going to see Rogue and the X-Men travel to Australia.
Okay. Why Australia?
Because in the 80s, in the comics, there was like a really important era of X-Men. It's called the Outback era, where the X-Men moved to Australia. It was one of the most important arcs in the comics. Like that changed the X-Men a lot. And Rogue was one of the X-Men there. And even now in the comics where she wants to be alone or contemplate or think, she visits their base in Australia and sits there.
Where's their base in Australia?
I want to say it's in...
Is it Ayers Rock?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere there. I'm not sure.
I'll have to read. If I want to read those ones, where do I read those
I'll send
ones?
you all the things you need.
That would be very interesting because I've visited Ayers Rock in Australia when my first nephew was born in 2000, because Ayers Rock is known to the indigenous people of Australia as kind of like Mother Earth's belly button. Uluru, right?
Yeah.
Mother Earth's belly button. So I went there and I did like a walk around the rock, and I did a very spiritual journey, and sort of prayed for the strength for my nephew and to be a good auntie and all of that kind of thing. And so I really got in touch with myself and with the spirit of the place and the ancestors. So that would make sense.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see that in the show. So
no comment.
So Lenore, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm so happy and honored to meet you, even if it is virtually, and talk to you and talk about Rogue, X-Men, and your career and all the things you like. And next time we meet, hopefully we meet over tea. Sit down for a little tea.
I'd love to try your tea that you've got there.
I can make it, yeah.
Yeah, sounds great to me. Well, hopefully when we do our tour, bring us to Bahrain.
Yeah, if they don't, they're going to hear from me.
There you go. That's great. Listen, thank you so much.
Thank you. No, I have to thank you. You took your time to sit down and talk. And like I said, and I wish you all the best luck in this new chapter and journey of the X-Men in your career.
I appreciate that.
And
keep an eye out for the movie that I just did too, called The Madones. It'll be coming out next year as well.
I follow you on social media, and everybody should. And this time, when the show hit, you're gonna get instant feedback. No rooms full of mails that never get to you. Like people will instantly be posting what their favorite moments are from the show or the episode. So this time, it's all instant.
That's good. And so long as they don't post that they hate it and they hate my character and they hate me and I'm disappointed.
I mean, comic book fans are kind of picky, so you should.
I'm sure they are.
Rogue has a thick skin, so you should take from her.
Yeah, exactly. Just roll with the punches, sugar.
And that's it, guys. Thank you, Lenore, for being here, and thank you guys for watching. Please follow Lenore. I'm going to leave all her social media links in the description. Thank you, and bye.
Bye. Bye, y'all.